Welcome to New York's number 2 sports show. The Rangers defeat the Vancouver Canucks 4-3 to improve to 7-1 on the road this season. So, away from Madison Square Garden has definitely been kind to the Rangers. And Chris Kreider scores the game winner halfway through the third period or thereabouts, breaks the 3-3 tie to give the Rangers a 4-3 lead, which they would hang on to. And this was definitely a much more high event game than the previous game in Seattle, as you would expect. That's more Vancouver style of play. And look, Vancouver is nowhere near full strength. Unfortunately, former Ranger JT Miller, it was announced earlier in the day that he is leaving the team due to personal reasons. We don't know exactly what is behind that. I'm sure eventually we'll know, but hopefully everything's all right with him. But obviously, he is one of the best players on the Canucks, and he was out, as well as Brock Besser, who is another top end goal scorer for Vancouver. Thatcher Demko's been out, so Artur Shilovs was in net, and I believe he's their backup currently. I believe Lankinen is probably getting the lion's share of opportunities, but maybe it's kind of a split thing. Either way, Demko, their starter, is injured. So it's not the full strength Canuck team, but things so far have kind of gone as I saw that maybe they would. And obviously we'll see what happens against Calgary and Edmonton. But while it may be difficult to go out west, the opponents are not overly imposing, even if the records and, maybe the recent success may tell you. I think ultimately that division isn't really anything overly impressive, especially in the early going. I think, Vegas is definitely legitimate, and Edmonton, of course, has, all the potential in the world to be really good. But definitely think when I look at that division, I definitely think it's probably one of the weak out of the four. It may be the weakest, but the Rangers find a way, and more good news beyond the win. Philip Hedl will join the team in Calgary. So presumably he'll be back against the Flames next game. I would say at most he would sit one more game. There'd be no reason for him to travel out for him to not play. So he will very likely be in there against Calgary. If for some reason he's not, then he'd be in there against Edmonton. Now, the funny thing is that line is still humming without him. Johnny Brodzinski has stepped in with Cuylle and Kakko, and they really haven't skipped much of a beat. And in this game, that line scores 2 goals, one by Will Cuylle, who has just been probably one of the most improved players in the league so far this season. And then Kaapo Kakko gets the other goal on that line. So it's interesting. Brodzinski, his role as this 13th forward, it's really a good one because he is versatile, and you don't mind him slotting in as the third line center with Cuylle and Kakko, for example. Like, in a perfect world, he's not one of your main 12 forwards, and he wouldn't be in this position of starting on a long-term basis. But in a pinch, it's pretty good. Again, for that versatility, he can really give you a little bit of everything. He's not really necessarily great at one thing. He's got a high motor. Like, I'd say, like, he's a quick player. I wouldn't necessarily call him fast, but like he's a high motor type of player, Brodzinski. And again, I think he's done a nice job filling in, but it'll be good to get Hedl back, of course. And more on the positive front, even though they were on for some goals against, the Zibanejad line had a pretty good game. Mika specifically, I felt like he is more engaged, and he gets a goal, he gets an assist. But even beyond that, he just looks the part. And maybe we can chalk it up to streakiness, or maybe, just being a slow starter to the season. Maybe it isn't so doom and gloom when it comes to Mika Zibanejad. So, like, early returns after what was really, I guess, that Winnipeg game was the one that was kind of rock bottom. He has responded in, what has it been, the last 3 or 4 games since then? I guess maybe 3 games probably, and has done a pretty nice job. So hopefully he can keep that up. as far as, while we're at it, I guess, because, right, those were kind of the two best lines in this game. The Panarin, actually, his point streak ended. I believe it had been at around 7 games, give or take, his point streak. So that's now over. I believe he's gotten a point in every home game, so that streak is still alive. But that line, it's always going to have its chances, and it did a little bit, but yeah, not an overly impressive performance by that line. But that's a good sign, right? Where you don't get any production from them offensively, the Rangers still score 4 goals. The fourth line, I thought, also did not play particularly well, and they've had a really good season. That Carrick line with Edstrom and Vesey, I think they've done a really nice job. And in this game, wasn't overly impressed by them. And then as far as the defense was concerned, let's start with the positives. Adam Fox and Keandre Miller, to a lesser degree, really good effort for them. And I think if that can stay as a duo, that would be really great. Where it needs to switch up is Lindgren Trouba. It just, there's no way that's sustainable. Like, they're not really doing well now, but even if the coaching staff really wants it, I can't see it getting to the point where it'll be tolerable. The thing is, they do use them as a top penalty kill unit, and they are on in end of game situations, which I don't agree with, but that's what they've done. So I think they're going to stick with this for a while. I didn't love the Jones-Schneider pair tonight. That said, they've been easily two of the best defensemen on the team in the first 17 games. So, no complaints there. But just, again, being honest, where I felt like the fourth line and that third pair were struggling, but ultimately they weren't on for any goals against. So kind of came away unscathed. But yeah, Adam Fox with Quinn Hughes on the other side. Quinn Hughes, one of his good friends, two very similar, top end American defensemen, smaller in stature, really great vision, both of them. Hughes is a little bit more dynamic than Fox in terms of, better skating ability and, is more of a threat in the offensive zone than I would say Fox is. But look, this is a really good game for Fox. He gets a couple of assists. He's a +2. And so it was good to see that pair, get it done. And then Igor wasn't great. He wasn't bad. Allowed 3 goals. Maybe he'd like to have 1 or 2 back. None of them were awful. But you could also say that they were stoppable. But in the third period, when you needed Igor to make some really big stops, he did. And that's, at the end of the day, what you're looking for. So even though Jonathan Quick has been the better goalie, Igor has certainly had a very good start to the season. And look, we saw this last year. Igor really was pretty bad, honestly, for stretches. We haven't seen anything close to that. But the point is, Jonathan Quick, where there was a good part of last year where Quick was the hotter goalie, it doesn't matter in the long run. It just doesn't. Igor is the guy, and he is going to get the lion's share of starts. I do tend to think that Jonathan Quick, he's going to get, this isn't a bold statement. He's going to get one of the next 3 starts. I think that Igor will get the nod against Calgary. And then the question is, who do they go with against Edmonton? The more I think about it, the more I think that they actually might go with Quick in that one. I mean, by guess. And if they don't, then certainly Quick will get the first start when they come back to Madison Square Garden against the St. Louis Blues. So, as far as this game was concerned, again, JT Miller out, Brock Besser out, no Thatcher Demko, and I think they're probably even beyond that. I think there's probably even a couple more injuries on the Canucks side. The Rangers give up an early goal, and that is a problem. 34 seconds in, Quinn Hughes scores his 4th goal of the season from Hronek and Pettersson. This is something the Rangers need to clean up because it too often, specifically the first period, but even in other periods, these early goals, and this was just poorly defended. It was the Zibanejad line with the Lindgren Trouba pair. Now, the Lindgren Trouba pair was on for all 3 goals against, and I'm not sure where you assign specific blame. I'm thinking about Trouba kind of throwing a stick out there and not really doing much of really not being effective with it. But it wasn't just him. I think it was kind of a full unit effort. Let's just put it at that. And the point is that Quinn Hughes ends up all alone, kind of the C's part, and Hughes comes in and he backhands it in. It was a pretty good backhand. Again, could Igor have stopped it? Yeah, I'd say he could, but like it was at point blank range. So it makes it 1-0. But really big response by the Zibanejad line off of a one face-off in the offensive zone. Zibanejad on a tip-in scores his 4th goal of the season from Miller and Fox. So Mika wins the face-off. It goes back to the point. Fox to Miller. Miller from the left side takes a wrist shot. And Zibanejad with the tip-in with Kreider in front of the net. So you don't normally see Mika with goals like that, but it was good to see. And again, just there's been a little bit more engagement from Mika Zibanejad. And that was big because, again, his line was the one that was on for that initial Vancouver goal. So that ties it up at 1 very early on. That was important. At 8:20, Dakota Joshua hooks Adam Fox, and the power play does not score. And these are two teams that have good power plays, and they were held scoreless tonight. So then at 14:38, the Rangers take the lead, and it's Will Cuylle with his 6th goal of the season from Kakko and Fox. So Will Cuylle, I believe he's tied for the team lead in 5-on-5 points. And just in general, in 17 games, Will Cuylle has 6 goals, 8 assists, good for 14 points, and is a plus 14. I mean, that is good to see. It really, really is, where he is racking up points, a plus 14, getting a little bit of penalty kill time. He even got a little bit of power play time with Hedl out. Now, that's not going to last, but there is a lot to like with Will Cuylle. And we saw a lot of good signs last season. I think in some ways he may have kind of tired out by the end. Not that he totally hit a wall, but his play definitely took a little bit of a dip as the year progressed. But he's come in this year, and this is a guy this is an NHL player. I mean, not that was ever much of a question, but this is someone that's going to really, I think, make a name for himself as a really, really effective player. So it was a play where Fox passes it towards the middle of the ice, and Kakko, I don't think it was intentional, but it ended up being perfect. It goes off of Kakko's stick perfectly to Will Cuylle, who has a little bit of a mini breakaway and a great wrist shot past Shelov's to make it 2-1 Rangers. But 3 minutes later, at 17:39, Kiefer Sherwood scores his 5th goal of the season from Pettersson and Soucy. So Sherwood, who was a former Predator, he's done a really nice job with the Canucks and really is noticeable, has a lot of energy. He's scoring goals. And this is a play where kind of a transition goal for Vancouver, where I wish that Riley Smith maybe could have stopped it when it was still in the Rangers zone. So it was a combination to me of Riley Smith and Ryan Lindgren, as Lindgren kind of gave Sherwood too much space. And again, maybe it's a goal that Igor could probably have stopped as well. So, but yeah, that was one that was not defended all that well in transition. And that's where Lindgren's lack of speed hurts. And I felt, again, like Riley Smith, and he was upset after the play, I think, at himself. I think that he probably could have prevented that earlier on. So that makes it 2-2. And then at 19:07, Sam Carrick, high six, Danton Heinen. This power play goes into the second period, which the Rangers kill off. At 3:33, Nils Höglander interferes with Jimmy Vesey. Rangers don't score on the power play. Then at 6:23, Braden Schneider's called with an illegal check to the head of Elias Pettersson. Rangers killed that one off. And then a little bit after that, Kakko gives the Rangers the lead again. 3-2 Rangers with Kakko's 3rd goal of the season from Cuylle and Brodzinski. This is a nice play where Brodzinski showing some patience, keeping the puck on a stick, bringing it into the zone, finding Will Cuylle on the right side. And Cuylle throws it towards the middle. I think it might have went off a Canuck defenseman. And Kakko is able to stay with it and, bury the loose puck through Shelov's. So 2nd goal for that line. And so that's a 2-point night for Kakko as well as a 2-point night for Cuylle. But the Canucks, a little less than 5 minutes later, they tie it up. And it's Connor Garland who scores his 5th goal of the season from Joshua and Suter. So Connor Garland, who I believe him and his wife are expecting a baby pretty soon. So it was a question as to whether he'd play. Connor Garland's ever since his days with the Coyotes, very impressed by his game. There's a little bit of skill. There's grit. Definitely a fan favorite for sure. And he is able to score that goal. Again, his 5th of the season. And this was one where Lafreniere didn't do a great job at the defensive blue line. Kind of his stick should have been on the ice. It wasn't. So kind of a little bit of soft coverage there. And then Trouba, he's kind of just roaming around. I'm not really sure exactly. And I think he might have screened I'm not sure if Shesterkin saw it. So again, like Trouba seems to be out of position regularly. But again, that's 3 goals against for Lindgren and Trouba. But they were on for goal 3, the Kakko goal, and they were on for goal 4 as well, which we'll eventually get to, the winning goal. At 15:05, minors to Zach Jones for roughing Connor Garland, and then later in the play, Hronik elbows Trocheck. So that made it 4-on-4, if memory serves me correct, but nothing came of it. We go to the third period. Keep in mind as well, just on some statistics, Rangers with a really good night on the faceoffs, winning 67% of the draws. So that's very dominant to win 2 of 3. And shots on goal, 33-24 for the Rangers. It was a well-played game by the Rangers. It didn't, it wasn't without its mistakes, but they played pretty well. And I would say that the first period, 15 shots time Rangers. Rangers had a lot of opportunities in the first. They probably could have scored more than 2 goals. And then, the chances weren't as plentiful, but, they find a way to get it done. So the third period, the Rangers take the lead, and it's the winning goal. It's Chris Kreider with his 9th goal of the season, assisted by Riley Smith and Mika Zibanejad. So a nice job all around. And, hey, credit as well. I think that Trouba kind of initially got this out of the zone, but the great work was done by Zibanejad and Kreider at the blue line, where they're able to keep it in and get going. Like quick passes, good chemistry. And Riley Smith with a really good pass to Kreider, who buries it. And that's what Chris Kreider does. He's a goal scorer. He scores there, gives Rangers a 4-3 lead. Then Vincent Trocheck at 13:34 would high stick Connor Garland. So the Rangers had to kill a key penalty. And Shesterkin made some pretty big saves. They kill it off. Eventually, the Canucks pull the goalie. And the puck was in the Rangers zone for the most part, but they didn't really allow any too high danger chances 6-on-5. And they're able to get out of there with a 4-3 win. So again, a couple of lines with a pair of goals. The Zibanejad line getting 2 goals. The Brzezinski line with 2 goals. Lindgren Trouba with 3 goals against. I like what I saw from the Fox Miller pair. And Igor wasn't great, but when he needed to be, he got the job done. So the Rangers Road Warriors continue as now they are 7-1 on the road, 12-4-1 on the season. And now they'll take on a Calgary Flame team who's coming off of a 2-1 shootout win against the Islanders. And their goalie, Dustin Wolf, a rookie, has been really good for them. And I would assume that he's going to be net against the Rangers. So Calgary, definitely a very winnable game for the Rangers. Like, they're just kind of finding ways to get points. But you look at their home record, they are 7-3 at home. They're 10-6-3 on the season with a -1 goal differential. So, like, on paper, you give the Rangers the edge here, but you just never know. And Calgary seems to be a team that plays close games. So we'll see what happens. But the Rangers halfway through this trip, wins against Seattle and Vancouver. And now we'll see what happens as the trip moves forward to Calgary. But again, Rangers are able to get the 4-3 victory on the goal by Chris Kreider in the third period against the Vancouver Canucks.